is a very tragic anniversary in the local Sandy Hook tragedy from 10 years ago. So I think it would be a good idea to have a moment of silence. There's a state champion in at Barlow for football, first time ever. Is that true?
Yes. That is true.
That is true.
Yeah, we recently won on Saturday night. I think I left when it was about 60-0, and they ended up getting 60-6. I think.
61-6. I think there's a balance. That's unreal. Congratulations to them. Okay, so we'll move to consent for a couple of items. First being the minutes from our November 9th meeting. Any comments or thoughts there? Good. Seeing them approved, we'll go to 2B, which is approval for superintendent to attend the American Association of School Administrators Conference. I think I sent you all a quick email just noting this. If there's any questions, comments, I'm sure Dr. McKinnon would enlighten us to the meeting itself, but we think it's a good idea. It's in the budget. So if there's questions or comments, otherwise we'll move to consent to approve that. And we'll go to public comment. Not seeing any members of the public. We'll go to board member comment. Good. John, good.
Nothing for me. Thanks, Randy.
All right, thank you. Administrative reports.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending tonight. Our first administrative report is from Ms. Fox Santorum. Just an overview of her report, if she has any comments and if you have any questions.
Kind of optional.
We love hearing from you.
We love hearing.
Oh, very kind.
Yeah.
I wanted to share, I wasn't here at the November meeting, I guess, so I wanted to share more things that's inclusive of November. We had 2 successful SSES Student Senate fundraisers. Thank you. I hope this has been helpful. One was for the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, and one is PJ Day for Connecticut Children's Hospital, which was a statewide event. Students and staff who chose to wear pajamas to work for the day was asked to donate $1. And although I'll admit to you, I haven't added up any of these, it was overflowing. So it certainly looked impressive. And I look forward to sharing with you the totals at another time. I wanted to give you just a little update on the climate work. You folks know that we gave the survey to students and staff and to parents. I feel like it was May of last year. One of the items that came across in the staff survey was pretty powerful when it came to the support staff. So the paraprofessionals who work in the building, of which, as you know, very few of them are general ed, most of them are special ed. There was a common theme related to feeling overlooked, that their ideas or contributions are not being valued, or that we don't gather them together in the same way or frequency as we do certified staff. And it affected me pretty powerfully, because that is certainly not the work or the messaging that we have tried to communicate to our staff. So during one of the November parent teacher conferences, I asked all of them to assemble in the media center with me. And I shared with them the survey results and showed them the commonalities that I've seen over the course of the years. The numbers changed, but the open-ended comment responses seemed to be there, and that I was looking to hear from them if they felt so comfortable to talk with me about what are some of the things that they're thinking and feeling, so that they can be addressed head on. And it was one of the most rewarding conversations to have because they were so rich with ideas. One of the things they talked about related to helping general education students better understand how to interact with students who are non-communicative. That kids apparently have a tendency to look to the adult with whom the child is and say, does he want to play football, or does he need me to get him a chair? That they wouldn't speak directly to these kids who cognitively understood what was going on, but just couldn't express the language. And so I'm writing all of this down. They talked about books and some professional development that they would like to have that they think will better tool them for the work that they do. And then they asked if they could come to faculty meetings, which some of you might know is before school at Samuel Staples. I'm like, you'll want to come to it. I don't want to go to the faculty meetings, but I certainly thought that was a wonderful idea. They talked about ways that we could tighten sort of the protocol should one of our kids become dysregulated. It was so great. So at any rate, we invited them to the December faculty meeting. And I started to share it. I didn't know until Jen Del Conte had shared with me that it was the National Special Education Day. So congratulations to all of them. And I talked about what I learned from this meeting. And before I realized it, staff's bodies all sort of turned their position to face sort of the paraprofessionals in a way that they hadn't yet experienced at Samuel Staples. And one of them stood up and said, I have a whole collection of books about autism that I would be happy to share, ideas for the morning announcements. It went on and on and on. It was this collegial, open conversation that, at least for me, I walked away feeling really good about the fact that they had, I think for the first time, an intentional invite to come to a meeting and share their thoughts and ideas. And they were received without any preparation from all of the certified staff with open arms. It was really great. And I have received a number of emails since then, ways that we can involve them and how much they appreciated the response that they got from their colleagues. So I just wanted you to know that we continue to look at these surveys and nibble away at some of the things that we know and can do better for our students and our staff. I also wanted to share that we had a tremendous turnout at our November parent-teacher conferences. I think every single teacher reported seeing at least one of the parents that for each of their students in the class, which isn't always the case. And I think part of that might be post-pandemic, that they knew that, yeah, it's business as usual at Samuel Staples. So please come sit alongside us. Let's look at some of your kids' work and let's work as partners. So we were really pleased. And then I also wanted to share, if you guys know Skylar Sherwood, our fire marshal, he is quite fierce when it comes to fire prevention poster contest. And he was quite clear that he wasn't pleased by the number of posters that we've received in years past. So feeling a little shamed, I then required all 4th and 5th graders to create this poster. So we had all of these posters, and there's a very strict criteria. So the art teachers and myself selected 2 winners. We got to select one for 4th grade and one for 5th grade. And before I announced the names of the winners, I then called the parents of these 2 winners who were weeping on the phone, because apparently the fire prevention poster contest is a very exciting time in their house. And I asked them if they would be so kind as to make some time in their calendar to come to Samuel Staples, that I'm going to put together a little assembly, announce the winners. Fire marshal is going to give them each a check for $150. And they needed parents' written consent, because they then need to send these posters up to the state level for all sorts of interesting things. Anyway, I am very happy to announce the 4th grade winner for the fire prevention poster contest is Jackie Lempert. And for 5th grade, Anna Lewandowski, whose mom and dad and grandparents came. We were so proud. It was a very exciting time for these kids. So we're happy to recognize them. And the only other thing I want to tell you that, gosh, that we are having a lot of families moving to Samuel Staples community during the school year. So we welcomed 4 kids since last I spoke with you, and we are welcoming 4 more the first day we return from in January for the holiday break. So where are they landing in the classrooms? I don't know. I don't know. I should have taken a closer look at that. I'm just looking at numbers. The numbers are really surprising, but really nice families come from California. We've had Texas, one from South Africa. It's been exciting. Any questions for me?
Can you repeat the grade organ, Jackie?
Jackie Lempert, Lempert. It's not Australia.
Thank you. I'm
All right.
glad you presented that.
I very much am. Would you like me to spin this back around?
No, because we're going to ask Ms. Jen Conte, who has the briefest.
Briefest of
update
brief.
to provide.
Just wanted to share with you, as all of you know, we have a new IEP system. Called CT sets, which is the new IEP format. But along with the CT set, the backdoor is that all of the special education teachers throughout the state of Connecticut are expected to be trained on how to strengthen IEP writing. And that has to be rolled out over a 2-year period. So we were very fortunate that we've been able to get, I would say, about 95% of our staff trained this year. So they've been going through training, and I think they concluded it this week. So we are actually ahead of the game in that, which is very nice. The other thing I wanted to report out on was one of the goals for this year was to strengthen the partnership between Easton and Region 9 in terms of educational programming. You know, we have wonderful programs, but that's a tough transition to go from 8th grade to 9th grade. So Tracy Hussey and I have really been partnering to make our 8th grade teachers and parents and staff aware of what programming is available to follow. So when we pass the baton, you know, we have all the programs available for them. So our teachers actually went today to Joe Barlow High School to learn about the different programs and offerings. So we have our PPT meetings at the transition time. You know, this should be a very smooth transition for our families as they make that move. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Pearson, you got this note passed because there's a curriculum committee update later on in the committee reports that you could make a comment on at that time. But Sarah Stefani can give you an update on finances and our health benefits accounts and plan.
You'll notice that, you'll notice in the transfer report that, there were some items, so small increments, no, that did not need approval, but I want to mention, as we heard about the increase in the number of students, we did need to transfer some funds to provide them with the what they need. So, that was, yeah. And for your whole things analysis, we are in a very, you'll notice that we are in an okay place. So overall, the claims are in line with where they happen, and so we are moving right along with our budget. I don't see any, there are no big highlights to really comment on here. We have started working on the budget for next year. In fact, this coming year for the budget presentations. That's pretty much it. It's not, thankfully, it's very uneventful.
Is there another interesting draft?
Yes, there's.
More accurate.
We did, and Vicky has been fantastic at working with them and really having them come around to get us the numbers that we need in a little bit more time of session. I won't say that it's exactly that point, but we're getting the process. They had some changes to their CAP, and so that impacted us. And then it's just through with getting what we need for the next for this coming year. We'll have down provided.
So January, February. Yeah.
You think the monthlies, I mean, the aggregate number is right. You think the monthlies are right? It doesn't really matter per se, but I was just. You think those, they've figured out,
I think that they have been combining two things, so one is a little bit higher and then the other's one's a little higher. I think we're gonna see that trend continue. Throughout the coming months.
okay,
It seems to me that where they end their reporting and start their reporting is a little bit different than how it was in the past.
okay.
Can I ask a question about the analysis on the bottom, just so I understand what I'm looking at? The 3 years average claims per month was 174, prior years 166, so it went down, but this year we're averaging 216.
We are,
But it's budgeted.
it is.
So we're actually trailing a little above our budget. Monthly.
Not,
at night,
not a ton.
Okay.
And you did put money into the,
Yeah.
in for last year, and you budgeted this year.
Anything in the object summary?
Does anybody have any questions about it? So you'll see on that transfer report on the last page, that's where you can see where we did purchase some additional Chromebooks for the incoming students at Samuel Staples. So that's on the second to the last page.
That's the technology.
Yeah.
And the custodian transfers.
So those are, what happens, is that we have this, we have a 150 account. I really want everything to hit the correct lines throughout the whole year. And so those are it's a reclass from one thing to the other, so that when we look at the salaries for custodians, you can see this is the actual offset that happened from a reimbursement from someplace else or a payback. That's what that 150 to 136 would be. The 150 is the payroll account. So what happens to that account is that it's where funds that go in are held, and then they get distributed to the correct line of where they need to go in the budget. And so as an example of someone, if we have a custodian who, we have an event, the event is charged, you charge someone for the event, it's paid to the 150 account and then dispersed to where it needs to go. So if it needs to go to custodians or custodial salaries, that's where it goes. If it needs to go to custodial salaries and then also some kind of other purchase or reimbursement, which would hit one of our typical budget lines, that's where it would go. You typically don't see that throughout the course of the year. And I think we should, so that you can see, so that you can kind of see the ins and outs, and then your budget object summary will be more accurate. Because otherwise otherwise the money that would be in the custodial line that was sitting in special payroll would not come out of the salary until the end of the year. And so then the budget object summary would be off, would need to be reconciled later. So I want to kind of keep it up as we go along. Did that make sense? Otherwise I could try to say it a different way.
Have we formally closed books for last year?
You have a few outstanding, you have a few things that are outstanding in Easton, but not many. So I actually talked to Christine Falber today, and we're working on making sure that all those reconciliations are complete. So as an example, sometimes something that the town has charged us for, we want to make sure that we reconcile that correctly in our books so that we are up to date exactly with them. And so that reconciliation, that last piece has not happened yet.
Okay, so that's the in-kind payments that the town does for the Board of Education, and then at the end of the year, we
Right.
settle on it.
Yes.
I'm sorry, can you go back to the line item before you, what did we purchase exactly? It was under technology equipment, 736 Chromebooks, so. And yeah,
So it looks like we're tracking about $600,000 over where we were last year, which is certainly not close to an all-time high. Our all-time high is 3.2 million. But are you guessing that the money set aside from the additional where the Board of Education approved additional contributions of $500,000 is in that?
is going to be in that.
Take care of that. Take care of that.
And so. So for our medical for this year, we budgeted. In 22-23, you have a budget of 1,393,000 approximately. So you, in addition to the money that you put in initially from last year's budget to this year, we should be okay. We'll continue to keep an eye on that, obviously.
Well, because we lowered our district's contribution,
Yes,
and then we're now 600,000 over. So the suggestion might be that we might actually end up being $1 million short.
I don't think that that's gonna be the case, but we'll watch it over time. We'll keep watching it
I think we,
because,
go ahead, no, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I think we could probably get 1 or 2 more data points, December and January, to see whether we're still,
Sure.
because November was lower. And sorry, December was lower, November was a little higher, and depending on where December and January come out,
Right.
we can make some decisions about whether we need to watch spending in other areas. And we've done that. Last year, we did that in Reading, where we kind of slowed down spending based on kind of where the health claims were trending. Right. And where we did that, we're currently doing that in Region Nine, not because of healthcare.
But we are currently doing that.
So, you know, we have the ability to kind of restrict the
Sure.
faucet a little bit, and yeah.
Turn down the spectrum a bit.
So I think we could probably see how December plays.
I
And even
expect
look at
December to be a little bit higher and then January to be a little bit lower, because it seems like that's what we're talking about for reporting. It seems like that's what the trend has been.
I think we have 2.6 million.
Yeah.
Between our budget and like our opening balance was 522, which sounds low, but
I think that is low.
but if our annual, our annual budget seems to be 2.1. If I'm looking at the sheet.
Randy, I think if you look at this and you go that our opening balance was 522, and then we have the additional contribution of 500,000, so that gave us $1,022,000.
And then we budgeted in the actual budget itself, we have 1.3 for this year.
Is that on this page?
No.
No.
I see deposits, that's not the budget.
Not an annual budget. Oh, I see. The annual budget is.
It's really 2.1.
basically
2.1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I take the 2.1 I add to the 5.2, but I'll go back and look at, I mean, you know, this is a hobby. Anyway, I think we're okay, but as Jason said, let's roll forward.
Let's roll a couple of.
Yeah.
Okay,
1 or 2 more data points, and then we'll
that's fine.
see which way we're trending.
Hopefully in a good place. Hopefully we'll be very healthy
Exactly.
in the holiday season.
Okay, are there any further questions for Sarah? All right, well, that concludes our administrative updates.
All right, let's go to item 6, discussion of possible action. We'll look at the calendar, which I think
That's the last.
you all have, and, yep.
Nothing's changed since our last meeting. We looked at this in November.
You know what? I don't know. I don't have the one that we had last time, but,
The only,
yeah, that was.
the only issue I recall was March 14th, there was a conflict. And we looked at March 9th. Is that correct?
Yes,
I have my.
yep,
my
yep.
computer's
I
up
have
to
my
date,
other
so-
notes from that. Yes, but that's what I had as well. Sometime that prior week, March 14th is a Tuesday. If there's a, I think it's the prior Thursday is the 9th.
We need to make a
Yeah.
motion.
Oh, before
Do
we
we-
discuss, it, sorry.
Make a motion to approve the calendar? Sure, we can make a motion to approve the calendar and discuss it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll make a motion to approve the 2022-2023 Easton Board meeting calendar.
thank you. So, I think the 9th is the prior Thursday. Reading has their meeting on a Tuesday. That requires administration to double up in 1 week, so. We're already gonna be double and triple for the
We're gonna
previous
hold
2
it off.
months, so. Right? I mean, yeah.
So the 14th was the Tuesday.
Yeah.
You want to move it to the prior Thursday.
If that's possible, the 9th, evening of the 9th, that works. So, John, is that work for you?
Are you're talking about April 9th or March?
9th. So our regular scheduled meeting is the 14th.
Yes, I see.
We could move it to the prior Thursday, which is March 9th.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Can amend your motion.
And then.
Oh,
So
yep, one other. item. Right now, this has 7 o'clock
Right.
time. Is that, Jen? I know that's cutting it really fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just be late. But I have to be, I'll get here if I can, but I may be late, 15-20 minutes.
5 minutes for 5 minutes. But, okay, I think the
I'm gonna
administration.
promise to end 30 minutes early.
Yes, right.
Right, we don't have to understand that.
Early and early, yes, okay.
Now, the joint board meetings are still at 7:30. I see
Yes.
January is, but I don't see that for May. I don't see that for October.
Oh, it's not listed.
It's not. That's it.
you know, we kept that at 7:30. However, Region 9, which was the meeting after you last month, also approved their meeting starting at 7 PM.
They will take it.
So that's actually a good question. I believe though Reading approved. No, Reading approved 7 PM for their regular meeting, but I think they kept the joint meeting at 7:30
Because they
PM.
voted before.
They voted
either
before
Easton
knowing,
or Region 9.
and. Right,
John, or Jeff, we have latitude when to move the time a little bit. It doesn't have to be set here. Does it have to be set on the annual meeting?
Did not set because the 3 boards are meeting on January 31st. We could discuss those two sort of things then.
We'll throw this way.
Yeah, and if we approve at 7 o'clock, we can either change it in our January regular meeting. Or they can. You have until the end of January to submit your calendar for the year.
So 7:30 or 7?
I think the two other boards approved 7:30. So you could probably stick with 7:30 and then all 3 change to 7. Rather than going with 7 and having it, right, that's what I'm saying?
If you do that in January, then it doesn't make those meetings special. That's just what I want to make sure we don't.
Right.
Even though they are special.
They are.
No, they're special. They're all.
But yes. Okay, so 7 o'clock, but for the ER9 joint board meetings, 7:30.
So amend my motion to adopt the 2022-2023 Easton Board meeting calendar.
23.
What did I say? 2022-2023 Easton Board.
I think it's just the 23.
Oh, wow. It's not school years. Right, that's what it says on the agenda. To adopt the 2023 board meeting calendar. With the March 14th meeting being changed to March 9th. And the joint board meeting starting at 7 PM, except for the January meeting, which will start at 7:30.
think all the joint boards are 7:30.
All the joint boards right now are set.
Yeah, we'll leave them at 7:30.
So close.
Okay, make a motion to adopt the 2023 Easton Board meeting calendar. As proposed, except for changing the March 14th board meeting to March 9th. And holding the 3 joint Board of Education meetings at 7:30.
And making the Eastern meetings at 7.
Well, that's.
Yeah,
That's on here.
It's on it. So we're, this one says 7, so.
No. I'll
Okay,
second that.
great. Thank you.
Second that,
Jeff, second, thank you.
Great job, Dave.
Any other comments? No? All right. John,
I vote yes.
thank you. And
Yes.
Alicia, yes.
yes,
Jeff, yes, Randy, unanimous 6-0. Thank you. 6B, creating facilities committee to study infrastructure needs. We talked about this last meeting. Devin, I meant to ask you. Alicia and Jeff, did anybody else raise their hand for this last meeting? You recall? I don't recall. Okay.
I tried to talk John into it and got no way.
I'm fully subscribed right now for committees, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough. Well, we'll leave a seat for you just in case you want to wander in. Okay,
So Alicia,
and Jeff
sorry, Alicia and Jack.
Right.
and we need to vote on this to approve
need
the
to vote on
committee, for the committee, establishment of the committee,
And
and
then
we'll set a meeting.
and then we'll need a charge.
I thought we were gonna look at Readings first. weren't we?
We could, but
We could give the task to the committee to bring forth a proposed charge to the board.
Yeah,
Got it.
we'll get that at the first meeting.
okay.
Do we want to set a meeting date? Or you want to come back?
No, I think we'll come back with the meeting. date. That's okay.
And just a point, the schedule that we just approved for the board, if that committee wants to have regular meetings and not just all special meetings, it would also need to submit a calendar of regular meetings before the end of January.
Okay. If we're gonna have a regular meeting, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, take a vote.
Did we get a motion? No. We made a
Nope.
motion.
I'll take a motion.
Move to form and do we want to make this ad hoc or do we want to make it? Well, I think Rome won't get built in a day here, so why don't we make it a standing committee?
Yeah, I think that makes sense as much as we trying to go the other way with committees.
Okay. Move that the Eastern Board of Education propose a standing committee to review the facilities issues and opportunities.
Second, Alicia, thank you. Any other comments, questions? No, John, you want to start the vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, Jen?
Yes.
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 Yep, Jeff, yes, Randy, yes, 6-0, thank you. And we're along, 6C, district priorities.
Okay, great. If you could move those out. This, I'm just going to turn my computer back around. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, John, I think you can see that at home.
I can, so can our viewers on YouTube.
Okay, that's lovely. And I think everyone here has a hard copy. We apologize that the print is so small. You can also see this on your devices. I shared this document with you. The name of the document is ER9 priorities. So you'll be able to zoom in at your leisure if you wanted to bring the document up. So let me just recap where we are. If you recall, last spring, we convened some focus groups. We asked 2 questions. What does the ideal school look like? What skills and positions do graduates need to be successful? We collected a lot of data from stakeholders, including our faculty. We had a community focus group. We invited students, and that data formed the basis of generating 6 main themes or strategic priorities. And under those 6 main themes, we're starting to identify some actions. At the end of our October joint meeting, you heard from students. They were talking about their experiences in the Easton, Reading, and Region 9 public school system, talking about opportunities for pursuing interests, accelerating learning, and so on. And I gave you an opportunity to kind of review these 6 main priorities and started to, contemplate them a little bit. We shared a survey with you. We asked you to fill out the survey at the end of the evening. Some of you made comments in the Google Sheet itself about some suggestions. And we're just at another inflection point where you have another opportunity to add some ideas and some thoughts, because some of these priorities you'll see in January in our 23-24 Eastern budget. We started this, we did this activity last week in Reading. We spent about 30 minutes talking about it. The Reading board had some good ideas in terms of some priorities that they can add. And they also had a couple of ideas in terms of how we can identify the timeline for when priorities should occur. And they suggested adding kind of a time commitment. So you're identifying a certain priority. Is that a human resource in terms of a low, medium, or high amount of work, or does that have a dollar value? So that was a really good suggestion, and we incorporated that into the chart. So the purpose of this review, one more time, is I'm going to go through some of these priorities. I just want you to listen to them. Notice if you feel anything missing that you feel like we should include. And as I'm going through some of them, I'll mention that, some of these ideas you're going to see in our budget in January, right? And the idea, just like our facilities work that we've just developed a committee for, if we feel like we cannot afford a particular priority next year, then maybe we put it in a subsequent budget, right? And that's the idea of kind of putting all these ideas down on paper. So the 6 priorities are the following. Priority 1, high quality teaching and learning. Priority 2, developing a culture that promotes a nurturing and welcoming climate and deeper, more engaged learning. Priority 3, improve school facilities to ensure student safety, long-term sustainability, and enhance student learning. Priority 4, meet the needs of all learners. Priority 5, develop a kindergarten through 12th grade portrait of the graduate that emphasizes real-world experiences and innovative learning. And priority 6, promote effective operations and skillful staff. So under the bucket in the first priority, priority 1, we have the following ideas. 1.1, identify high impact instructional strategies to implement student learning. This work has commenced. We've incorporated the high impact instructional strategies into our DIP and our SIP, our district improvement plan, our school improvement plan. Priority 1.2, develop a district and school improvement plan. So when you can see that in the timeline as completed, right? Because we did complete a district and school improvement plan. So, and you can see over here that the percent completed is 80%. Now, in column D, you'll see the time commitment, low, medium, or high. So that actually took a significant amount of time. So that's rated as high. But in terms of the dollar value, there was no dollar value associated with developing the school improvement plan. So that's, again, how this table works. Develop collective teacher efficacy around high impact instructional strategies. That is probably going to take some time. And just a comment on the year itself. if you approve these ideas in next year's budget and you approve the strategic priorities as we're starting to outline, that starts the timeline. That means that those things are going to start occurring in year one. So you'll see in the timeline, year one, year two, year three, or even ongoing, right? So the idea of developing teacher efficacy around those high impact instructional strategies, that is going to take some time. And so we've put that out to year two, which would be 2024. So we need to start working on that. It's going to take some time, right? So again, just kind of trying to orientate you to how this works. We're interested in developing a 5-year curriculum review plan. We want to evaluate textbook quality and develop a textbook revision timeline that has implications for the budget, but the activity in itself doesn't cost us anything. We want to develop and align our professional learning to our district and school goals. 1.7, we want to improve math achievement, K through 12. Now, you will see here that there are some actions that actually do have a price tag. Number one, hire a math coordinator, K to 8, add a math interventionist in the 23-24 budget, adopt a new middle school math textbook. So you'll see that one of the things the curriculum committee is going to talk about tonight is a curriculum update on adopting a new math textbook, grades 6 through 8. But if we believe that we're going to add a new textbook, we need to encumber about $100,000 in our budget next year. If we feel we're going to add the math coordinator, then that would be an addition of approximately about $120,000 for that FTE. So you can see here how the strategic operating plan, the strategic plan identifies the cost value. Now, say, for example, we can't commit for that the next year, then we would move that to year 2, year 3, and so on, right? So. This is spread across. So that $120,000 would be divided equally between Easton and Reading.
Did you do one and not the other? Did you coordinator required with the new text folks?
No, you could. I firmly believe we need a new middle school math textbook, and
do that
you could. And we'll talk to you about the advantages and disadvantages of doing that, right? So when you adopt a new program, you adopt a new textbook, sometimes there's an implementation dip. So student achievement actually goes down. It takes more resources and time for staff to implement that program. So if you really want to kickstart math achievement, then you value that as kind of a return on investment. They're not linked, but there's obviously a correlation between doing both of them at the same time. Or you can say, okay, we'll do this year 1, and we know we're going to do this year 2, or vice versa, right? But there's a relationship between both. 1.8, we want to develop a digital learning technology plan. That is not going to cost anything. It has a medium time commitment. One of the goals related to math achievement, 1.9, we want to increase the number of students taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade to about 80%, right? Because Algebra 1 in 8th grade is a gateway skill to higher advanced mathematics at the secondary school and high school. Currently, we have about 40 and 43% of our students taking Algebra 1. We have 3 sections of Algebra 1 in 8th grade at Helen Keller, 3 sections of regular courses. We have 3 sections of regular courses in grade 8 over at John Reed Middle School, and 2 sections of Algebra 1. And the idea is to create more sections and more opportunities for students to take algebra. How do we do that? It's not just about opening the gate in algebra in grade 8. We may have to do something K through 8 to get students prepared for that pipeline. But the goal is related to improving math achievement overall, which is something that we need to do. So that goal is related to that. 1.91, provide more opportunities for advanced student learning and flexible pathways with on and off ramps based on student needs. So you heard our high school students talk about that. 1.92, develop opportunities for students to develop their own evidence of learning outcomes and increased student agency. So we have to define what that looks like. 1.93, develop assessments where learners demonstrate learning through a variety of assessment strategies that actually inform classroom instruction and curriculum. Some of these things you can see have a high time commitment and therefore are placed out into year 2, but they're still worthwhile strategies. Support the superintendent so the superintendent can maintain focus on teaching and learning. 1.95, increase coding and STEM experiences for students K-8 and enhance computer sciences at the high school. So what are some example actions that go along with that? I would love to see a goal where by the time students are landing grade 6, they've completed 500 coding lessons. Another one could be study and enhance computer science pathways. And we can even link this to the math coordinator because the math coordinator could actually help put that into place. We're interested at 1.96, studying new AP courses offered by the College Board. That's that's a high school goal there. 1.97, revise our teacher evaluation plan through PDAC to improve professional learning, observation and feedback, and understand the impact of teacher practices on student outcomes. We're actually starting that work. We're looking at revising the way we provide feedback to teachers. We have an outside consultant that starts tomorrow. Dr. Pearson Hugo is leading that work with a group. So if you look over in the timeline, you can see that we've started that, and we're at 10%. And so whenever you see the this 10% and you change it to 90%, you can see that it's conditionally formatted and so on. So, all right, moving on to priority 2. Developing a culture of learning that promotes a nurturing and welcoming climate. We want to develop a district communication plan. We want to look at the ways in which we communicate two-way, not just one way, with our key stakeholders, including looking at and designing a new website. This is a high time commitment. We have to be strategic about when that happens. 2.2, identify a common set of tools to address social emotional learning that is connected to tier interventions. 2.3, develop a set of learning experiences for students that promote acceptance and understanding, appreciating differences. 2.4, develop a written document that defines the district goals, beliefs about learning and the vision of a graduate. That's really important to build stakeholder engagement. 2.5, increase access to extracurricular activities. Research have essentially said that if students are involved in 2 extra outside school extracurricular activities, they actually do better in school and achieve at higher levels. If they're involved in 3 activities, right, it has a diminishing return. And so we need to identify how many students are involved in extracurricular activities and find out ways to get them involved. And one of the ideas that we love from the Reading board was, can we investigate late buses to get students home once they participate in an activity? That's an example of a common sense way. Yeah, right. 2.6, promote intellectual risk-taking that builds student resilience. 2.7, develop more opportunities for students to learn at a deeper level by applying their knowledge to areas of interest. This is kind of the idea of a personal interest project at the middle school, possibly a capstone experience at the high school. We still have to explore what that looks like. 2.8, increase and align middle school programs and opportunities for student collaboration. 2.9, increase opportunities for middle school students to learn about Joel Barlow High School. Moving into priority 3. 3.1, establish instructional spaces and flexible learning environments that support innovative learning, enhance student collaboration, and incorporate technology. So we just created a facilities committee. Hopefully, we're not just focusing on roofs and painting and drainage, that we're also looking at spaces. The Reading board just commissioned an RFP. We put into the field for architects to come through both schools, and we're looking at bids to start looking at furniture and carpets and finishing to enhance learning. And so we're really excited about that. 3.2, develop and or revise the capital improvement plans for each district. 3.3, reflect on K-12 facilities manager position and model and assess effectiveness. So last year we put into place a new K-12 facilities manager. And it's time to reflect on that. And you'll probably see a slightly different model when we present the budget in January. Because we have some thoughts on that. Continue efforts around school security to enhance student safety is obviously an ongoing concern, and I know the board has been really committed to that. 4.1, ensure the district fully meets the needs of our multilingual, multi-learner English students. So you'll see this in the budget. We want to create at least one English language learner teacher position, and you can see how that would be broken out. That person possibly could be 0.4 in Easton, 0.4 in Reading, and a 0.2 in Region 9. So it's a district-wide position. And you can see the breakdown. We know that if we wanted to do a 1.0 and we wanted to look at teacher salaries, what that cost would look like. And that analysis probably tells you right there, you're going to see that in the budget in January. But our staff have talked about saying that we really need to have 2 English language learner teachers, one in Easton, one in Reading. So you can see that we can scale that up anytime with that data. Develop the role of a STEM coordinator teacher for Easton. This is a specific item for Easton because we know we have a stick level position focusing on science, technology, and math over in Reading. We talked about at the beginning of the year, remember the discrepancy in our grade 8 science scores. And is there a relationship between having that position, not having that position? We had some ideas on that. You can see we've got a placeholder in the budget for a master's step 6 person at $62,402. So you'll likely see that as a budget idea. There are some software and some technology solutions we want to explore for language services to improve communication. Line 42 or 4.3, I'm sorry, it looks like I've missed a number there. Develop common progress monitoring tools for SRBI. We've started that work. We have a committee. Increase structured literacy support district-wide. So we have various levels of structured literacy support. It's really a need that's increasing all the time. And so structured literacy is essentially a highly qualified reading teacher certified in multiple areas that provide support for students in regular ed and in special ed. And so we've got some ideas about how to increase that support. So that's in the budget. Developed a shared definition of differentiation and monitor implementation. Differentiation is such an important topic. We just need to come back to it, right? And make sure that we understand it and where the teachers really have a common vision of what that looks like. We'd love to look at analyze master schedules to maximize instructional minutes. How are we using instructional minutes? How are we using WIN and study halls and opportunities for intervention? 4.7, conduct a program evaluation of junior bridges and bases. That's just good practice. We've had these programs for some time. We feel like they've saved the district some funds. We're keeping our students in the district. How's it going? That's an important evaluation. 4.8, review our gifted and talented identification criteria and current program implementation. So we do slightly different things in each district, but we are looking at standardization, including adding an additional instrument. 4.9, evaluating increased special education costs and study excess costs to maximize return on investment. We're spending more money on special education. Therefore, we should be getting more money back in excess cost. What is the relationship between those funds and our operating budget? So we need to have a really good understanding of that. We're almost there. Thank you for your patience. Priority 5, portrait of the graduate. So this is a requirement for NEASC. We need to build and design the portrait of the graduate from stakeholder engagement. We've done a lot of the engagement that was done back in the spring. That's the collection of the 2 questions that I answered. So you can see here that over the next few objectives, these items are high in time value, not really having a cost value. And you can see a timeline, year 1, year 2, and so on for that work. Once you develop a portrait of the graduate, you need to develop rubrics that define learning experiences that are aligned to the portrait of the graduate. I'd love to see 5.3 opportunities for personal interest projects in 6 through 12, leading to capstone experiences. So that's an example that we talked about above that's related here. We need to continuously find ways to nurture community partnerships. So what are some ways those partnerships can be developed? Align school-based practices and resources to the portrait of graduate. Adapt curriculum development and revision process and align that to the portrait of the graduate. 5.7, study options to expand our robotics and engineering department and physical space at the high school. Very specific objective there. And finally, this one's more operational. It's around effective operations and skillful staff. In the future, I think we need to focus on expanding coaching capacity to train teachers more in high quality instruction, develop coaching cycles related to the coaching capacity. We need to continually study high performing schools to examine schedules and student learning experiences and identify best practices. We need to have a clear strategy for recruiting, hiring, and maintaining a highly qualified, skillful faculty and staff. We need to continue to study central office to maximize efficiency and staff. We do that all the time. We're talking about it just this week. Study payroll benefits and procedures. 6.7, identify current service contracts that would benefit from an RFP and possibly savings. 6.8, review and study transportation options, including the use of vans, the location of our bus depot. We could put that in there as an action right now. Create a succession plan for the transition to our human resource director. Study the financial processes of money that go back and forth between the town and the Board of Education. And that's it. So so you have 6 main buckets. You have a lot of priorities that go underneath those buckets. We don't need to do all of them at once, but we've identified a timeline that they should get completed over the next 4 years. Some of them have financial impacts. And so my question to you after hearing those now for the second time is this. Is there anything off the top of your head that you feel like we need to add? And I can send you a survey. If you can't think of it now, you can add it later, or you can send us an email at any time. But I just wanted to really, you are one of the major stakeholders, and we just need to continually ask you, where are we in the process?
I would just, so 1.7 is improving math. Right? Yeah. I don't know if it would make sense to also put something in about the science and bringing the right to read adoption, because whether it's a priority. So like curricular priority and just increasing. I know you have it, like you have structured literacy in there later, but yes, it just feels like it should be in here now too.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I have a general comment, not about something that needs to be added, but something that I haven't seen for some time. I've never written a lot of business plans. On 2.4, develop a written document that defines the district's core values, beliefs about learning and inclusion. High time commitment, yes. Doesn't cost anything. Year 2 is the time. The question is, if we communicate those things at this juncture in the process, and it, sort of puts a bow around the priorities and let people understand where we're going, what our values are, what our beliefs are, what our, the intention of all of this great work.
You're saying, could that be year 1? Makes sense. I understand.
It's a consideration.
Yeah. Okay. I think
Knowing that it's very high time. It involves a lot of stakeholders. But also I think would build a census and understanding and
right.
I don't know, I think would motivate the districts to really rally around all the priorities that you're putting here. Because you can always point to your core values, you can always point to your beliefs and say, this is why we're doing this, because it is our core values as a district. We believe in doing these.
We are going to present a pretty polished document that's still going to be a draft in January when we present the budget. And probably the piece of data we're waiting on that really brings it all together with that bow is the portrait of a graduate. So the work associated with how do we get to this place? What are our metrics? What are the big ideas that are really emerging? What are our priorities and actions and timelines? I think that can all be put together. The piece that's a little bit lagging is the portrait of the graduate, which is related to our values, what we care about, and where we see students, where they're going and how they get there. So I think that there's a portion of this that maybe I can define it in the actions next to it, where you'll see 80% of it in January. And then the last, to get it into the end zone, it's going to depend a little bit on our portrait of a graduate work, which I know the high school has started, right? But I changed it to year 1. I put it in there. So let's give it a shot. Okay.
Jason, because there's a lot on here and a lot of it happens year 1, some year 2. Have you sort of in your own priorities put an impact on each of these? In other words, you start at the beginning, but which one of these, you have 6 seconds, and then, so where do you start? And then have you identified of all of these 75 items, the high impact, the medium impact, the low impact? And is that how you're sort of bringing things to the forefront? I'm just curious, because you've talked about that in past previous meetings. So this has a huge impact on the student performance, and that's why it rises to the top. And these are important, but they're not at the same level.
I think you'll see priorities reflected that have a budgetary impact in next year's budget or soon after, that have a high impact on student learning. And then items that have a more, a greater impact or that are significant are going to be in year 1 versus year 2. So that is probably how we're defining what's more important compared to what's maybe important but not as significant. If you have an idea about, or a recommendation or a suggestion on how we could measure the potential impact of each of these 75, maybe we can add a column H and define
Yes, please.
that. All right.
Measures of success.
Well, right, so like, wouldn't you look not at 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, but try to find a measurement that would like maybe look at the overall priority and by year and look at like academic goals, some financial health, facility completion. I think if you get too minute, you're gonna end up with measuring something that's dependent, like some of these pieces come together to compare to.
Yeah, I've done these in the past where I've added measures of success. I've added whose responsibility is it, and I've added all these columns. In reality, I haven't found them that useful because I don't want to achieve that action and get that action done and then go on to the next action. Sometimes you spend time on measuring the success or developing a tool to measure that action, and you're kind of burning calories on, you know.
Is in the steps and the dips that have student achievement.
Yes, and so that's actually a really good point. So when you see this is just, right now you're seeing the Gantt chart, right? This is just a list of stuff. When you see the document that we talked about, Alicia, it'll actually have kind of an introduction. It'll talk about a little bit, it'll frame it. It'll talk about, these are the big things that we care about. And it'll talk about the ongoing metrics. So every year you're going to see, we want to improve reading by 3%. We want to improve math by 5%. You'll see those metrics every year. That's a given. And that's one thing that I'm trying to separate out from a typical strategic action plan is it's not just about these priorities and actions. We're going to have the dip and the sip at the forefront every year as well.
So in one of the initial decks you shared with us, you had, I think it was bubble circles that like overlapped. It was like a Venn diagram of 3 of them, so 2. And it was like strategic priorities, goals and metrics.
Values,
Values.
right?
So I feel like we know the values. We know a lot of strategic priorities. I think it would probably be helpful. And I think it's in the this would maybe to have a goals and metrics. Something that like
Yeah.
you have those 3 things that are connected.
Yeah, the metrics, if you recall, if you go back to the dip and sip, the metrics are clearly lined out in 4 areas, right? So the high impact instructional strategies, the standardized measures, the non-standardized measures, and the climate data. Those metrics are just ongoing student data that we're going to try to improve through various means, right? These are more.
These contribute to that, those improvements.
Yeah, there are things. I see what you're saying, trying to link some of these things back. You know, what are the priorities that really drive some of the achievement? Is it really saying?
Effect size.
I don't know, I would be cautious of spending a lot of time disaggregating, because like, you come into a building that has strong teaching, effective and high quality teaching, and the building is literally falling apart and like the kids are freezing all day because the heat doesn't work. Like, is that a teaching and learning problem, or is it a facility, right?
Yeah.
Some of these things connect. So I think some of it is just knowing the priorities we're aiming at, and are we on target to hit those priorities?
Okay.
And being cautious of like overly isolating each one of these as if they are connected to the work.
Measuring priorities.
I would also, just based on what Kim said earlier, just in terms of priority or goals and metrics, is there something around culture for staff? I think that's an important, like all of these issues. But I don't know if it's in like the goal and metrics, the differences.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between impact, if you're talking about student learning, and then a necessary order in which things need to occur. Because some of these clearly need to go in a certain order. You need to have a plan, you need to have a timeline, you need to have steps, and then you're executing. It doesn't mean that the plan itself has a higher impact, right? The plan itself has no impact. But if you don't have a plan, you're not going to have any impact. So I think that in some ways,
Yeah. Developing a communication plan like 2.1 is not really going to have an impact on student achievement, but it's important because it's a way in which we engage families. But what I heard you saying is, can we incorporate measuring priorities and linking them back to student impact? Is that what I heard? Kind of that.
They're not on the same, like, they're not in the header of the document, so it gets lost that, like, you have your 3 prongs to your plan, right? Your priorities, goals and metrics, which are like live at the dip, kind of at this level, but then at least then you have your SIPs and HKMS and SCS, right, et cetera. And then you have your values. And so like, I feel like we clearly articulated values and priorities here, but you don't necessarily see, like, it could almost be just a header, like metric of like, our year 1 reading goal, or year 1 math goal, year 1 stuff. It lives in the dip, but is there a way to?
Oh yeah. So
find that down?
when we present this strategic plan at budget time, you will see the metrics. The very first thing you'll see is metrics. And these are things we're going to almost like, this is our district at a glance. It's like the cover page. The cover page is going to be a series of metrics that we're watching every year that's in our dip and sip. The dip and sip won't be in the strategic plan, but some key metrics will be. And what are the key metrics? Reading, writing, math, science, maybe some other big ideas like increasing the number of students in algebra would be a big idea. And so we'll put those big ideas front and center, and we won't lose track of those. And then in the chart that defines the priorities and the actions, I can think about a way to measure the priorities and link some of them back to student impacts.
About the year 2007 to 2010, we spent a fair amount of time talking about metrics and measurement and particular, the idea which grew out of strategic work of a dashboard. So we wanted to create a year-9 dashboard. And I think where we got bogged down in the we was really a large strategic group that involved constituents across the districts, was in the idea of what are you going to put on that dashboard? Because there were so many ideas and it was really hard to decide what would take priority. And then once we came up with a list, what metrics would be used to show that progress to create the dashboard. But I think that we've come a long way since then, and I actually think that technology has come a long way as well. So I wonder if that idea of a dashboard is something.
Well, the document is going to look very much like a dashboard. Actually, it may not even be a document. I think it's more going to be a website that has that feel that when you see. So you'll see the priorities. You'll see kind of how so this is part of my notes in terms of kind of bringing the document to life, right? So you'll kind of see how we're describing where we got to, how we got to, what the key elements are. There's like my handwritten drawing about how we're going to describe our school and our district. So you'll see, this is, enrollment data. You'll see our budget data. And then here's our example of our metrics that you'll see, right? Kind of where we are right now, what our goal is in 2023, what our goal should be in 3 years' time. So you'll see that and some big ideas. The big ideas, I think, the 500 computer science lessons, the percentage of students taking algebra, more extracurricular activities, higher impact instructional learning, collaboration, expanded science and engineering, increasing opportunities. These are the big ideas, right? Everything else is necessary, but these are essential.
I do think it comes back to what Alicia was saying about when you understand the ideal graduate, you start to be able to say, like, well, obviously they're a strong, literate person with math. Like it helps also then define some of those metrics that matter in terms of like it all links together. It's not like one thing in isolation. I just
Vision the graduate class. Right, so
100%.
you give it like then, and then you determine, so then what does that look like?
yes.
Can I ask you another question about our big idea?
Yeah.
Where does our district rank with our peer districts and some of those targets?
Is that going to
Well-
up some? Is that going to?
When we presented the dip and the SIP back in October, we actually, I showed, actually, if I go, I can show you some of this. This was the dip, if you remember that. And in the dip, we talked about, these are the actual areas and what the goals were. And yeah, and it showed, if you remember, it showed exactly where we were in terms of our scores compared to the DERG average and our neighboring schools. Yes. So we presented that data, but what was your question? Right. You're not going to see that you won't see that in another. No, that's not. No, that.
This is what make us as competitive, more competitive,
Yeah, those ideas kind of came out of some of the stakeholder conversations that we had. And they're more holistic than we're going to improve our reading scores by 3%. Yeah. Because you need both. You need these metrics, but then you also need these big, these things that we can aspire to as well. All right, so I have the idea of, I have science of reading as an action step or a priority. Goal 2.4, I moved to year 1. The idea of measuring priorities and linking back to student impact. Culture and professional development for staff, the idea of collective efficacy. Is there anything else that you wanted that's on your mind?
the budget discussions.
you know, linking these priorities and how the ones with the dollar signs will improve our metrics, right? Because that's our goal, is provide, you know, best education we can for our students. So if that means spending more money to improve reading scores or improving math scores or improving literacy, you know, kind of making that linkage
Yeah,
between
okay.
the metrics and the dollars.
So when we present the budget, typically what we do when we say, this is a new idea or a new staff member or a new program or a new textbook, we stop and we pause and we delve deeper, and we'll say something like this. We are requesting an English language learner teacher. We see that as an approximate $65,000 cost over 3 districts. And the reason why we're requesting that is because we have 45 English language learner teachers. Yeah, and we'll give you data, and then we'll say, what does an English language learner teacher do? An English language learner teacher helps not only our English language learner teachers, but currently our reading teachers and our interventionists are providing services for our students who have difficulty reading, but they're also providing services for our students with English language learner needs. And by providing an English language learner teacher, you're actually providing a more skilled person trained in English language learner areas, but then you're actually expanding capacity for our reading teachers to focus on tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, correct? And so when we explain the budget and we have something like that has a cost or an impact, we will delve deeper and give you kind of the background as to, you know, as to why we're requesting it and the data behind it and the reasons why. So yes, that's a great idea though.
I'm just so impressed and excited to see what's ahead.
Okay, us too.
I know. Ready to see the outcomes.
A lot of work. Well, you know, we may get to a point where we say we have 75 objectives. Everyone agrees all of these things are important. We may get to a point where we say, well, we either can't afford it this year or we're moving it this year, or we could say some of these have a human capital. We're not achieving these targets because we don't have enough people or manpower to achieve these targets. And so that's another conversation. But, you know, instead of saying we need 3 more people at central office or we need another principal to do something, what we say is, here are our tasks and these are the things we believe in. It's going to take us 10 years to get there, or if we have additional staff, it may take us 3 years to get there. How much value do you put in this? And I'll give you an example. When I was an assistant superintendent in New Fairfield, I developed a 5-year curriculum plan and I identified all the curriculum that we need to develop in the next 5 years. And I realized that the work was so vast that it wasn't going to take me 5 years, it was going to take 10 years. And so the board hired a 3-year sabbatical person that helped write curriculum. And we kept to that timeline, right? So you can't, I truly believe that you articulate what's important and then you define how you're getting there. And sometimes you need more or less resources to get you to that target, right?
Question, sorry for is how, so when you think about reporting progress to the board, so once we have our January meeting, obviously there will be some budget implications, but will you give us like a regular quarterly update on progress against goals and metrics? Like, what is your thinking in just in terms of how the board will hold you accountable to this work? Or what should we do to make this? I mean, obviously we should fund as much as we can to make it possible, but like also there's an accountability piece of it. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think there's a natural mid-year process to look at student achievement. There's a natural kind of dipstick. And you can, in terms of evaluating a superintendent against goals and objectives, first of all, you need to have the goals and objectives. So now we have them, right? So this should now become our work and the board's work. And I mentioned before that moving forward, once we get this work set in place, that your agenda items in your board agendas should also reflect the priorities, right? So, so I wouldn't say quarterly. I would say beginning of the year, mid-year, end of year, beginning of the year, mid-year, end of year, and kind of keep on a cycle as to what our progress is. Something like that.
It probably lines up logically, just by the way we approach when we talk about smart balance testing, and we talk about the budget, and then we look at the year and where we're going about. So I think 3 times a year, is probably logical, it's gonna be it'll feel natural.
I think so.
And this is more granular to questions about how we gonna be able to do it. And I'll go back to what I brought up last meeting, was that these dollars from the federal government and from the state. I think there's a point to be made that we should be considering using those dollars to implement some of these programs. Because it'll get us off the mark. Year 2, we're able then to evaluate, because year 2 is when we're gonna have to start making things. And there'll be a track record that we can look at, saying, here's the improvement we've made for year 1 and year 2. That's a greater justification for spending that money from year 2.
Okay. No, that's it.
Right. They go to 6 and 2, food services.
Or you want it, or you want me to?
I'll pass this out while you tee it up. How's that
Okay.
sound?
Okay. We had a meeting of the food service committee, because at the end of December is the official end to the state support of free lunches for our kiddos. And so we recognize that or Sarah was able to provide us information that the cost of the free lunches per month is about $80,000. At the end of December, we will have about $35,000 extra that we're either going to give back to the state, or that we can invest in putting into meals into the month of January. So the committee came to the conclusion that what we'd like to be able to do is to, although we have been communicating with parents all along, so that this is not a big surprise, that we continue to provide lunches or free meals through January 20th. That is a long weekend, President's weekend, I think it is. And it makes, or maybe it's Martin Luther King. Okay. And so that we can use that 35. It's going to cost us some dollars as well out of our current account. But right now we have, well, I thought it was about $400,000, but I think your analysis said it was the 385.
It's about that, yes.
And 385. So we'll take $30,000 out of that 385,000, put it toward the meals, and then starting in January 23rd, we will start charging for them. The second question that we looked at is what are we going to charge for the meals? Because all of our a la carte stuff, which does not fall into the category of free meals, we haven't raised the price throughout the entire pandemic. Cost of food has gone up, I think 12.9% is the information that we received. So the question is, should we increase the price? And if we should, how much increase should that be? So we went down through the list, and there's not an exact correlation between what we've the dollar value that we've assigned to some things. Some things we've raised what we felt was right and fair. the stuff that is healthier, our tendency was not to, not to raise it as much, and when it came to milk, we decided not to raise it. So this list that Sarah's been kind enough to put together explains all of this, and then it also here at the bottom of this page and all of here gives you what the prices currently are, what is proposed, what's the dollar increase, and what's the percentage. And so we're going to be asking the board today to accept the recommendation of the food service committee and approve the memorandum as presented. There, I miss anything?
No, thank you so much.
Okay. So I'd like to make
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that the Easton Board of Education approve the memorandum dated December 6th, 2022 concerning the National School Lunch Program as presented.
You don't want to use this bottom motion, and that's fine. I don't
No,
know. if that-
no, I think we want to have every board approve the same motion. So I beg your pardon. So at the bottom of page 2. The motion is move that the Eastern Board of Education utilize funds of the joint food service account to cover the cost of lunches when SMART funding is exhausted through January 20th, 2023, and recommend that the students resume paying school lunches effective January 23, according to the prices reflected in table 1 of this memo. Thank you, sir. I didn't know that was coming. That's great.
I'll second.
Thanks. Any other?
Any other discussion?
Can I just ask a question? I think I heard you say this right.
Sure.
Items that were healthier, we didn't increase the price on,
We didn't do,
generally speaking, we
Right.
tried to keep those more affordable.
right, the fruit smoothies.
That's what I'm reading.
Yeah, is
Okay.
gonna stay the same, the milk is gonna stay the same.
Got it.
Um,
And we haven't raised
French
price enough and French fries went up.
French fries went up.
Good.
Pie for the guy.
Ralph went there.
It'll be, yeah.
They're so
Blind
popular.
man.
Anyway.
Also,
Hear that one.
also you'll be happy to know that the vegetable of the day will also still be.
Just the 385,000 ended up is in the account today.
Right.
How does that rise and fall? Is it a function of what we pay, what the kids pay, the parents pay for the lunches? and
Oh.
meals?
That funding is, that money is federal. That is from mostly from the reimbursements that we have received back from so mostly that's, when we paid for our school, we had the reimbursements from the lunch program. And we filed the paperwork to get those reimbursements from the
So,
state.
but how does the account go to zero? When do we pay it down or do we leave 385,000?
We have to pay it down, as far, for federal and state staff.
And that's what's gonna pay for the 23 days in January?
Yes.
385?
Right.
Yes.
3 and 5. Now, the rest of that money
Seems like a
cannot be
lot.
used. Well, first off, 385,000 is the highest I think it's ever been. We've been with Chartwell now 12 years. Part of the reason why we made the change from the previous vendor is we were always red. Chartwell, with Chartwell, we've always been in the black because part of the agreement is that you can, that if you're able to generate more sales through marketing, then you'll make a higher commission, so to speak. And so they're locked into our success because their success obviously will reflect that. And now, 2 years ago, because we did not submit the information concerning the number of lunches, we wiped out the account. And every board had to pay, I think it was $15,000 or $17,000 at the end of the year. So everyone was pretty cranky about that. But since that has been, since that's been completed and with Sarah's guidance and good judgment, we've been able to make sure that we get all the money that is supposed to be coming to us on a regular basis. And so the 385 is at least, it's probably doubled from the high point that we've had over the past.
Okay, but so for folks out there listening, the 385 is going to zero in 23 days in
No.
January? No.
No, the 380, the balance of the 385 goes to whatever we need in any of the 6 buildings, 5 buildings, to improve the services that we offer. A freezer,
And so-
guys,
Yep.
that money goes to that.
So, I'll just read it so that it's, this is from the State Department of Education. Expenditures will be used to make improvements to the USDA school nutrition programs, such as improving food quality, replacing or purchasing equipment, and purchasing necessary supplies and services. So that's what that money has to be earmarked for.
Okay.
And then we actually have a special account where all of that is then audited, and in fact,
Have an audit coming up this spring. The state has asked to come down here and audit us, which is very exciting.
yes, it's an administrative, they call it an administrative review. And they do a look back and they see how we're doing, and they give us feedback about the good things we're doing and areas that we can grow and improve. So that will be this spring.
And just to wrap this, so that accounts gets added to based on a percentage of what the kids buy in school. And we have, and how this comes under facilities or some other thing, but we have earmarks for that 385 or whatever that number for the next 5 years, because we know we're gonna need something here and something there. Okay,
I wouldn't say that all that entire 385 has been earmarked, because you never know when the boiler's gonna break type thing. But we have used it successfully over the last 12 years. The charcoal has been our supply.
So when something comes to the end of its life, or just breaks and there are no other parts, that's where that comes from.
okay. And that's the right number. I mean, it's high, you said, but it's, we're not looking at expenditure because that counts pretty high right now.
Right, with this, the district, the Troy district is not in any kind of immediate worry about having that. Pulling up in the building. You should never have to.
We meet monthly. I meet monthly with Chartwell's to see to get a profit loss statement and to go over where we are and where we think we need to be,
Okay.
and to make sure that we've submitted all of the correct paperwork for reimbursements.
Sure, yeah, great. Anything else?
Would we revisit the cost increases? Hopefully, when inflation decreases, so if food cost comes back down, would we revisit?
Well, we agreed that we would do this increase from now until June 30, or until the end of the school year. And then we would then go back and assess the impact of those, and then make a decision to whether we want to raise them, lower them, how we should.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? What is the price of milk? We have a lot of kids who buy honey milk.
Yeah.
It's the very
50
bottom.
It's 50 cents.
On the back.
On that. Thank you.
Second. I did. Alicia, you gotta have.
I did.
We're gonna vote unless there's any other comments. John, we'll start with you.
I vote yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Alicia?
Yeah.
Seven, yes,
Yeah.
6-0. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Jeff, thank you. Thanks for your leadership on the committee and for the contributions from our Reading and Region 9 members as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good group. We as a good group, and everyone's got the kids' best interest in mind. Come to work.
Yes.
One,
All right. We're gonna talk about 6E student enrollment.
Okay, so Dr. Prouder shared his 20-page report on student enrollment for the 23-24 school year and beyond. And I've condensed that into a 2-page memo. I think you should have. It is electronic. And I will, yes, okay, John will share that with you.
Thank you.
So just the highlights. Between 2007 to 2020, student enrollment in Easton Public Schools declined from a high of 1,178 students to 882 students. And enrollment has rebounded to approximately 904 students. That number is taken October 1. As Kim mentioned, there has been some ins and outs since then, but that's where we're taking this number. Enrollment is expected to increase by 142 students over the next 10 years to reach 1,046 students by 2032. There are some districts that are declining in enrollment right now. Reading and Easton are actually expected to increase. So the total number of students this year, last year projected in 2021, 2022, it was 893 students. As of October 1 of this year, it's 904 students, and we're projected to have 908 students next year, which is a variance of +4. You can see the enrollment at Samuel Staples is going up to 583, an increase of 4, remaining pretty flat at Helen Keller Middle School, declining 2. So when you look at Samuel Staples in particular, our October 1 enrollment, 28 students in kindergarten or 2 sections. We have 100 students in kindergarten. First grade, we have 93 students. Second grade, we have 99 students. And if you recall, in last year's budget, we increased from 5 to 6 sections. And then from grades 3, 4, and 5, we have 5 sections. Grade 3, we have 93 students. Grade 4, 94 students. Grade 5, 100 students. The projected from Dr. Prouder next year is having 2 more pre-K students. We don't see a change in the number of sections in pre-K. Kindergarten students, we see a decline from 100 students down to 85 students. We have a question mark there for the number of sections. We are not sure whether we're staying at 6 or declining to 5. In Prouder's report and in my memo, Prouder noted that this particular number is soft, and in general, each year we kind of pontificate a little bit around kindergarten and first grade in particular. So we're holding on a projection in kindergarten. First grade, we see an increase to 107 students, 6 sections. Grade 2, we currently have 6 sections. We see that remaining relatively flat, 95 students. Maintaining 6 students. And then in grade 3, we're increasing from 93 students to 103 students. And we're not making a projection yet whether that's going to be 5 sections as it was this year, or whether that is growing to 6. That is something that Kim and I are talking about. 4th grade, 96 students projected to stay the same at 5. 5th grade, 97 students projected to stay at 5 students.
But this doesn't count the 8 students that were added.
It does not.
No.
Yep, these are as of October 1. However, as Kim said, we'll have to get that, we'll get the exact grade levels where those students are. So depending on where they are, it may have no impact. Depending on where they are, it could have an impact, right?
So you have to look at, in our scores pre-K program and area through schools. Right.
Yep. If you turn over the page and look at Helen Keller, you see that as of October 1 of this year, we had 90 students in 6th grade, 97 students in 7th grade, 110 students in 8th grade. We're projected to increase in 6th grade to 103 students, plus of 13. We have 92 students in seventh grade, plus -5, and 100 students in eighth grade, -10, for a total of 295 students, which is -5, -2 overall. So the key points are that enrollment at Samuel Staples is expected to gradually climb during the next 10 years and reach 648 students by 2030. That's in figure 5. Enrollment at Helen Keller Middle School will increase steadily during the next 5 years and then fluctuate until 2032, and expected to reach 367 students. And the key takeaway at the bottom, the summary here is we don't anticipate any budget changes based on demographic information. And this is where we insert a disclaimer. Because as we've talked about in the past, although demographically we don't see fluctuations in enrollment that are significant, sometimes we do see an increased number of special education students or 504 students or increased students with needs, and we make adjustments to section and class size based on those indicators as well. So this memo provides a snapshot, and the key things we have to talk about really that have budget impacts will be kindergarten and grade 3. We don't expect some significant changes elsewhere.
Kim, what do you feel about 85?
The early conversations I had with the directors indicated 85 seemed reasonable.
Okay.
But so too, we have had an unusual number of calls between September and December moving into town. And I think we'll know a little bit more. Moving into the spring.
Well, I keep looking at the monthly property transactions, and it's healthy.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that we have school age kids coming in, but we're continuing to move a lot of houses.
Crowder concluded that the students that are coming into our school system have been born already. And so that's why he's projecting the way he's projecting. It's just a matter of migration and whether they stay where they're going to stay. And if we have a quality school system, they will. Right. So that's all I have on student enrollment.
Okay.
If anyone wants an extra copy of the memo, I have extra.
There's some here too. Beautiful memo.
It's a great, I love a good memo. I'll give you another one.
Thank you.
I like how it's footnoted. True, accuracy.
We'll,
Sites being tested tonight.
things rolling to item 7, board committee reports. I'm gonna start with.
No.
curriculum. Right.
Devin, do you want to report out as the chair? You want me to jump in?
Sure, jump in when I mess it up.
Okay.
We had a Easton Board of Education Curriculum Committee special meeting on December 6th. It was actually a very packed meeting. So we started off with a discussion about the middle school science curriculum. Miss Rebecca Richards, who's the STIC coach, the science technology instructional coach at Reading, presented about the current curriculum that is used and explained that it was NGSS aligned, and they're called CREC resources. It's both used in Easton and Reading, which are like a consortium of schools that came together to create a set of kind of shared curricula that were aligned to the standards. Over time, she basically explained that over time, those resources have become maybe they're still good, but she's recommending that we move to a new resource called Open SciEd, which is an open educational resource curriculum, has a lot of free resources. It's currently being piloted in grades 6 through 8 in Reading, and they've really received positive feedback from teachers. She also has already started to reach out to print vendors and had found one where she felt the cost for those materials around teacher resources and consumable student resources was really fair. And so we will get an update on that once we get into the budget.
Yeah. So I would say the key difference between what we're currently using for our, really K through 8 curriculum resource for math And what's being recommended for just grades 6 through 8 is the vetting. So the units that were created through the CREC consortium were all created by science teachers across the state working together, all dealing with the new adoption of the NDSS and collaborating and sharing ideas and working with a consultant from CREC who is an expert in this work. But there was no sort of vetting beyond that consortium progress. The open SciEd units have been endorsed by the state of Connecticut, and they have gone through a more thorough review process, and they offer a more comprehensive type of resource to teachers. It's not completely homegrown, which is really what the correct units are. We know that.
Spell science.
So it's open, so the O in open is capitalized, and then sci, the SCI, but the S is capitalized, and then ed, the E is capitalized. And so, yes, so the open SciEd units are the ones that are currently being recommended.
And she showed us, yeah, so I was just sharing some samples. She showed us some sample content and showed the differences between like these cross-cutting concepts to really, which are really at the core, especially in the assessment piece. And so we talked a little bit also in Easton, because science has been a place where we've seen drift away from the curriculum and away from really teaching us the standards that are tested, which is, there's some belief that has resulted in a dip in scores. Then we moved and had a good conversation about the right to read legislation. Dr. Pierce-Newball shared an update on the state timeline for implementing that legislation, which requires currently that all school districts implement one of 7 core reading programs in grades K through 3. Waivers are due soon. I'm not sure if the state has.
We do not have an update yet, so the state has not yet released the waiver that must be completed by all public school districts.
They
in the
want
state
it.
of Connecticut.
Sure.
In a few days.
Commit to the money.
The rumor is that deadline will be pushed back by at least a month, which would not be shocking, given that we have not received the actual waiver yet. But it was very helpful, I think, to have more of the update beyond the state legislation. And none of us disagree with the research around the science of reading. And so we are looking to improve our practice, certainly in this area. And so it's really helpful to have Tony D'Agostino, who is an earlier intervention teacher at Reading Elementary School, share what this looks like in action in classrooms, not just the research, but what are students actually doing, what does this look like within the reading block.
Yeah, and she went through a presentation. She reviewed the science of reading. She talked about the shifts that the districts are already making in terms of training teachers. So while they're some of the curriculum pieces are still that we currently use are still in place, we're already starting to make that shift in terms of pedagogy. And then we talked a little bit about the science of reading and just possible budget implications, especially since we still don't know the timeline.
What about math?
Then we moved into the middle school math curriculum. And Dr. Pierce-Newball shared a presentation with us about our current middle school math performance, both in Easton and Reading. And she shared that Easton students aren't performing as, and we've seen this before, aren't performing as well as we would expect in comparison to other Durg A peers. She then overviewed what could be some of the causes of that challenge and provided an overview of some possible reasons, including, are we looking at a student cohort need? So is it a specific need within specific cohort that's moving grade to grade? Is it something curricularly? Is there something in our curriculum resources that we can improve? Is it a student engagement challenge? Or does it have to do with the amount of time our students' schedules that we spend in mathematics in the middle school?
What was your conclusion?
There's no clear conclusion, and that's why the budget proposals will include a number of things. So we are going to push hard for a math textbook review at the middle level, looking at about 5 different resources that have all been vetted and reviewed very highly by Ed Reports, which is an organization that does this kind of work, does this type of evaluation, and then also where the math coordinator comes into play. because it's not absolutely clear based on the analysis, if you look over many years, and this was part of my presentation, you look at the student performance, you look at the cohort progress, as well as year to year. You can't clearly say, oh, this is a bubble moving through students who were really struggling, or this was the year where the Common Core standards were adopted, and then we saw a big dip because, that's sort of what we're expecting, higher standards and expectations, and therefore, that would take some time. Is this a matter of the fact that our math specialists at middle level spend almost all of their time in intervention groups and almost no time coaching teachers? So if they're not working to improve instruction and support their colleagues, then if you think about that sort of cycle, it's a little bit of a vicious cycle. So they're always working to intervene because the kids are struggling, but if we're not focusing on improving instruction, if that's a need, or looking at resources that possibly could be better resources, then we're not really attacking the problem in sort of a multi-pronged way. And so that's why the budget proposal will include both a recommendation for a new resource and also greater oversight and hands-on support of our math teachers. Now that math coordinator, and you'll hear more about this in January, will be K-8 in year 1. I anticipate that a great deal of time will really be spent at the middle school level.
And we did discuss our current curricular, like our textbook is over 10 years old. So in addition to a core textbook, we've also started to use other resources, which we made a curriculum committee voted on the board a few years ago, and we adopted Envision Math at the K-5 level to continue to the 6-8 level, keep that core text, but allow teachers to really work together to create a set of additional resources because that resource is dated.
Well, math is not a dated course. I mean, math is math. So let me play.
Well, the research behind how you teach math has shifted.
Okay. Does that mean that it's going to be better?
Yeah, so the resource, let me speak to the resource a little bit. So let me use our former elementary resource as an example, Math in Focus.
Okay. Yeah.
Math in Focus was our first post-Common Core adoption math resource. At the time that we convened that textbook committee, which you'll remember well,
Yeah.
This was the approach that was being used in this area in almost all third A districts, this sort of Singapore math approach. We knew going in that resource was not perfectly aligned to our standards, but we thought that program offered many things that would support our students. So one was aligned with concrete to pictorial to abstract in terms of the approach to understanding. It included some digital resources, nothing compared to what we see today, but some digital resources. And we invested in some professional development with a highly acclaimed international consultant who did excellent work with our teachers K through 12. If we look now at that resource is dated only because at the time that it was written, all of the publishers were scurrying to align their resources with the new Common Core standards. And so now, fast forward 6 years, that was the length of time of our licensing. We had so many more options because there were so many publishing companies that had revised their resources to be more tightly aligned with standards and had problem solving and had much more advanced data collection, analytics, assessments. And so we had, I think, more and better options to choose from. So what I'm hoping for at the middle school level, different from what we saw a few years ago, is that in the years that have passed, which also included pandemic times, so a lot of technology advances, we will have options that I think will support both teachers and students in terms of user-friendly teacher tools, technology tools that will help us to analyze data and inform effective instruction, as well as something that's aligned both with standards and our approach.
My concern is if our lead math teacher or math specialist was not, because of circumstances, but the circumstances were that she was spending all of her time or a majority of her time in remediation, then how can we know for sure that a new math program is needed when the job that she was hired to do, she wasn't able to do because of circumstances beyond her control?
Well, so the new math program, so when we decided to use Envision at the elementary level, we didn't make a change at the middle school level. So the middle school level really does not have a core program. We didn't change from CMP3. That remains the sort of textbook resource, but they are really using other supplemental resources more time than they're using their core. So if you don't have a core comprehensive resource, it's really hard to test to see whether it's working, because especially in a place like Easton or Reading, where you have one teacher assigned to each grade, and a teacher is saying, well, the maneuvering the middle or the math and practice material is really what I think is most effective. That's the one I'm going to lean on the most. It might not be the same than what's being done in Reading exactly. And again, it's just difficult to evaluate then in what case, what is it that's making the most difference in terms of student learning?
Again, when I'm looking at her, it's the dollars and cents. And that the argument that we might get is, well, how do you know one thing doesn't work as well as it could because you didn't give it, we weren't able to do the, I don't want this to sound like a blame because it isn't, but the circumstances were such that that our specialists couldn't do the job that she was hired. And so is that the problem, and should we be addressing that so that she can do the job that she needs to do? And I think we've got that in here, but I want to make sure that we do. There's no sense in repeating something that, that obviously didn't work as well as it needs to.
So to be fair, even if we are successful in having a math coordinator in Easton and Reading, our math specialist here at Helen Keller will still spend a lot of time intervening with students, right? Because a coordinator will not be able to do 100% of the coaching as well as the oversight, the curriculum oversight, the data analysis, and work across 2 districts, K-8. So I imagine that the math specialist, whose job has always been, their role has always been to both intervene and coach, will still be intervening a fair amount of the time. Yeah, it's hard to answer that question. It's a good question, but it may take a few years
I'm going to
to
simplify
get the
this.
traction.
You cannot have a hodgepodge collection of math resources in the middle school and expect high quality results. You need a well-researched textbook that has multiple opportunities to accelerate students throughout the grades, to get them to Algebra 1 faster, to differentiate those students who are requiring support. And it's a risk you cannot take, right? Our math scores aren't where they need to be. We need it's the Durgay School District. We need a high quality math textbook, right?
So for the new B, those textbooks were just not available at the time when we needed the new textbooks.
No.
Now they are because of where we've evolved and how we teach to them.
At the time that we did the
Right.
elementary program review, we had decided not to do a middle school program review for a couple of reasons. So
Yeah.
one, we thought it would be untenable for the boards to consider in the same budget, adoption of a new
Right.
resource at the elementary school and at the middle school. And then the second reason was that there were some emerging resources. One of them is a resource by the name of illustrative math that was sort of growing. It had not been yet fully developed. And so the belief at that time was that in another year or 2, the textbook resources would improve to the point where they'd be in a better position to recommend something that was a solid
now we're in the
recommendation.
Are we still looking for an 8th grade math teacher too?
The position is still
You volunteering?
the
Was on
position
here for a
is,
2nd grade math teacher.
the position is still open. I don't think the 8th grade teacher left. I think there's hasn't
The
left.
22nd.
Yeah, so it's still posted. It's still posted. Yeah.
And then we concluded the meeting by approving our calendar for 2023.
Yes.
food committee already
Food committee or?
firing its rifle, so we're
At
done
dinner,
with that.
yeah.
There's a DEI task force meeting on January 20th at 5 p.m. Joe Barlow High School.
Did you say January?
Yeah, sorry.
December.
December 20th.
December.
Holiday gear is optional or? you
I'm
can-
coming as an elf.
Yeah, very good.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Screwed off. No, but it's December 20th. It will be tight because there's a Reading facilities meeting and I think a regular Reading board meeting right after. So Region 9 meeting. So we will be, it's all Region 9. All Region 9 meetings right after. So it's going to be succinct,
5 to 6.
5 to 6. When we did it, we made it work in the committee, curriculum committee. We did it and timed it. We went a little over. It's fine.
Okay.
Nothing to report from the transportation committee, although, we're getting close.
Moving right along.
Right along. Any other committee reports? No? John?
We met tonight at 5 o'clock for the policy committee. The joint policy committee and the Region 9 policy committee met together. We identified 3 items that we want to first get some feedback from Dr. McKinnon. And then we plan to bring back to the boards on sort of a few policies that we left for later that we'll plan to get to soon.
These are on the sort of the docket of things that we didn't adopt in mass last spring.
Yes, there were sort of 3 categories. The things we didn't adopt, and sort of for a couple of reasons, either because it was too controversial or we had just passed something and so we didn't feel like we wanted to relitigate some of those items. And then the third category of items that we're looking at are going to be sort of new legislative items. We're actually to the point now where we're not just playing catch up from 20 years ago. We're now playing catch up from the stuff that was passed last legislative session. And so we have recommendations from Shipman for those items.
And what's the sort of cadence you guys are meeting these days? It's not-
This was sort of ad hoc. We still had the regular meetings on the agenda for weekly that we sort of scheduled through 2022, but we've been meeting ad hoc as all of our schedules have been a little insane lately. But our plan for the 2023 year is to publish a monthly agenda. And if we can do things right by mid-year, if not earlier, switch to a quarterly.
Okay. Very good. Does that wrap up our committee reports? I think it does. All right. We'll move to board member comment.
I just have just a question, or maybe if you could take it offline. On the budget summary, object summary, furnitures and fixtures and the technology lines. The year-to-date expenditures are greater than the budget. Is that anything to be concerned with?
We have not received our E-rate funding and Helen Keller is getting access points replaced over the holiday. So those will come back into balance when we receive that funding in, and then those will.
Okay, great. And
Thank you for looking at that.
huh? I'm a finance person, so my eyes just kind of look at for certain things.
Yeah.
The special ed excess cost adjustment, what is that?
So there is a threshold for per pupil cost for special ed. And when the cost meets that particular threshold, the state of Connecticut then reimburses the district for some of the cost for that student. That set point changes every year and is published by the state right about this time. And so we estimate what the excess cost is going to be based on what we project potentially. It's a little bit of a moving target because the percentage changes from the state and the actual expenses, the students change as well. And so we estimate what that's going to be. And then we are reimbursed for that excess costs twice a year. So we do a projection that we give to the state, and then they give us some funding back. And then at the end of the year, we
do a reconciliation to see, you know, here's where we rejected, here's where we actually are. And then they give us, the final balance of those funds.
Okay. Thank you.
That was a great explanation. Thanks. Anyone say?
I just want to say a quick thank you to Elf. They just concluded their annual fundraiser on Sunday night. And they raised over, I think, $20,000 in support of our schools. And just thank Samuel Staples for the Paddington Bear Project, which finishes tomorrow, which is a really an annual fundraiser that supports children in poverty. And for every $25 raised, a Paddington Bear, like plush doll, is provided to students and other resources. And then just at HKMS, they're doing a great job. If you walked in, seeing all the Toys for Tots collections, just I think it's a great way to get our kids involved in caring and sharing this season.
No, I agree. They have been doing great. There's been so many fundraisers. And having trouble keeping track of them. No, Jason, I want to thank you again for the priorities work. Seeing it for the second time really feels like it's coming together, at least for me, because it's a lot of priorities. 75 priorities is a lot, and some of them have 2 or 3 pieces. So thank you for that. And other than that, if I don't see you at the DEI committee meeting, I'll have holidays. Happy holidays with your families and loved ones.
You too.
This isn't a comment as much as it is a question. 2 years ago, Jason, the former director of finance had some work done concerning some of the facilities and what it would take to get them fixed. If we can get that, if that actually exists, and
Right now.
perfect. Because a lot of this stuff is going to end up a discussion with the Board of Finance, and before they start to lock in on what their budget's going to be for next year, I want to make sure that we're properly represented.
I think that the purpose of us establishing a facility committee was to take a look at that report, do a walkthrough of our buildings, get kind of the boots on the ground impression of what actually is that we need, and start to zero in on some priorities, and even to validate some of the items in that report, which I've shown to some people. And I think there's a certain degree of skepticism based on some of the things in that report. And there are some other things where people are like, oh yeah, we definitely need to replace the parking lot over at Samuel Staples School. And that's been something we've been talking about, right? And so, but yes, there's the report. And if you believe everything that you see in that report, we need to spend about $10 million over the next 5 or 6 years to fix everything that's broken. So,
well, I understand how it was presented, so we don't have to worry about giving up with $10 million.
right. And if and the rest of the board would like a copy, I can email you a copy as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so I can email you an electronic copy.
We're meeting on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Did anybody notice that? I just put it on my calendar.
You bring a dinner?
The wine.
Well, bring the wine.
It's gonna have to take independence. Anything else? Devin, you're good. Echo your comments. Happy holidays to everybody, and safe and healthy, most important. And thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn 9:44 p.m.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays.